Good morning, everybody. This is Pamela Parrish with a special edition commemoration video of my father. Today he would have been 85 years old, and I wanted to talk to you a bit about his family, where he came from, where some of my relatives came from that I can remember in my almost 50-year-old memory bank. Um, my father was from Cadiz, Ohio, and I have a shot of the house here to prove it on Google Maps, Google Earth. And for shits and giggles, I thought I would go down here and find my Aunt Ruth's house too, which is on Grant Street, just down the little hill from their house. So my Aunt Ruth and my father lived in the same neighborhood. At least his parents did anyway. From what I remember, it's just a small town neighborhood in small town America. They used to have something called the Coal Festival there, and it was like a little community out in the middle of the country. The fairgrounds is right there in the general area. Sally Buffalo Park is there. We used to go and feed the ducks, which I hear you can't feed them bread anymore. But I had a lot of great memories as a kid going down there and visiting Grandma and Grandpa, even though I would often get homesick and want to go home. My grandparents did the best they could with what they had, and it was still a great time. My dad grew up in a time when parents weren't so touchy-feely, but, as a kid, he grew up not liking tomatoes until one day he forced himself to go out there in the field and pick one and eat one. And ever since then, he actually liked tomatoes. Then he said he went into the service in the 1950s, did his duty for his country. And from what I remember, his sister had the front bedroom, which you'll see in the picture, and my dad had the rear bedroom. And my grandparents had the center bedroom of the house. And I can remember where everything is. You walk in the front door of their house. There's like a mini living room. You go off to the right in the mini living room, and then you see like a big living room. You go to the right, and then you make a left to go into the big living room. But if you didn't want to do that, you walk in the front door, you could go straight forward into the kitchen. And I don't know if the house would still have the toilet where you have to pull the chain in order to flush it. Literally, you could stand up and pull the chain. But the one thing I loved about my grandmother's house was she had like a giant powder room where she could have all her makeup and oil of Olay products and be able to primp herself up in the mirror. And because she had thinning hair, she would often wear wigs. But she was still a terrific lady, who would spoil us rotten with cookies and ham and anything you could ever want. And, pack us in the car, take us to Sally Buffalo or to a movie. And those were the things that I remember most. And I think back when my mom and dad grew up, they weren't in a touchy-feely kind of situation. You didn't hug your son. But I think when Jerry and I came along prematurely, it kind of put things into a whole different ballgame for them because they wanted me to have every opportunity possible to survive this thing they call life. And I can't believe that my dad has been gone for as long as he has, about 12 years. Be 12 years this summer. So, yeah. It gets easier, but it doesn't get easier. You could bury the waves of tears that would come the first years after it happens, but you still feel that little empty spot in your soul, and I guess it'll always be there to a certain degree. But from what I can remember, I had my grandfather living on Park Avenue at 416, and my Aunt Lucille lived down the road from them. And then I could remember my Aunt Ruth's house most astutely, which is at, let me see here, at 543 Grant Street in Cadiz, Cadiz. And I got a shot of her house up on my camera here, and it's a white house, very nondescript, but it was always such a nice house from what I can remember. But she lived there as long as she possibly could until one day she fell and it totally changed her life. She went to go do laundry one day and she wound up having to have surgery after falling. And then she spent her last years living with her daughter up in Akron. So, yeah. And I can be sure that it was hard for her to sell her house, as it was for my dad to sell his parents' home. Of course, if he had his way, he probably would have kept the house. If he didn't have this one here. So, yeah. But as they say, times change, things roll on. My grandparents are buried in Jewett, Ohio, along with my Aunt Elizabeth and other various family members that I know and love. And I can't believe it's been 11 years since my father passed. But I could tell you a lot of things about my father that would make you proud. At that time, when I was growing up with him, he exposed me to all kinds of music. Pop, rock, bluegrass, um, all kinds of music, including greats like Patsy Cline, Willie Nelson, and Hank Williams. And every time my dad would hear Patsy Cline, he would cry like a little baby. Because my dad said, they used to call her the little girl with the big voice. And I said, I believe it. And my fondest memory of my dad was one of the trips that we took to Myrtle Beach. And they had some sort of contest going on at a McDonald's, which we stopped at to have lunch. And I didn't win the contest, but the gentleman let me pick out a cassette tape from the big pile of cassettes that was in a box. So I shuffled through the box, and I found something called the Patsy Cline Story. I think it was like a stage play, but they put the audio on tape. And I thought, well, this would be something my dad would like. And I said, I want to get this. And he says, don't you want something that's around your age? And I said, no. I said, I want to give this to my dad. And I took it over to him and I gave it to him. And then he says the same thing. Don't you want to get something for your age? And I said, no. I just wanted to get it for you. And my dad was flabbergasted. He couldn't believe that his own daughter, that couldn't have been older than maybe 12 at the time, had given her father a Patsy Cline related tape just for him to have. Those are the memories that I want to have. So, I remember going on a lot of vacations with him, mostly to Myrtle Beach. And I vaguely remember the one to Florida because I was so young. I was like 13, still a tiny, tiny kid, literally. My dad took us to Disney, and I remember riding the ride where you ride through the Carousel of Progress. And let's see, what else do I remember about that trip? And riding Space Mountain. That's all I remember of that trip, really. But I remember the parade that they were having at the end of that particular day. I couldn't see over anybody because they had me in a wheelchair. And I was struggling to try and see what I could see. And my dad, noticing this, got me out of the wheelchair and held me in his arms so I could see over the people, so I could watch the parade. And that's the kind of guy my dad was. You know, he was a good, honest man who did his part for his country and loved his family. And I still miss him to this day. I miss his comfort. I miss his advice. You know, and I miss him being able to um, curl up with the TV every half an hour. If Judge Mathis was on, he'd say, "Hey, I like that guy. He doesn't play around." Same thing with Judge Alex. I like him too. You know, and he would watch those shows, and I would oftentimes stop what I was doing, whether it was playing games in here or if I wasn't out anywhere, I would sit and watch those shows with him. That was like bonding time between father and daughter. And one of the last trips we took together, just as father, mother, and daughter, was a trip to Kings Island. Now that I can remember very well. It was before the weather was going to get really cold for the year, and my dad was going through the stages of neuropathy, which is a side effect of diabetes. And they gave him like this back thing that sends like electric pulses through his back to help ease the pain. And he didn't know whether we would be able to go to Kings Island. You know, and I'm kind of pouting because he picked me up from the library that day. And I said, well, it's okay. But I still felt down about it. I just didn't let on that I would be disappointed. But somehow or another, we managed to make the trip. We didn't ride very many rides that day, I remember, except for the gas-powered cars and one or two roller coasters. And that was fine because, you know, just being together with my mom and dad, that was treat enough. We rode a couple of roller coasters, my dad and I, anyway. And we had a ball, you know. And the one ride that I remember more than anything was the Days of Thunder ride. You walk in what looks like an ordinary theater, right? But you get in those seats, you strap yourself in, and it's like it moves along with the pictures on the screen. It plays a scene from the movie, and it feels like you're being slammed up against the wall or riding in a real race. It shook up my insides, but we had a great time, and I wish we could go back to those days. Because my dad said after the ride was over, he says, "Are you all right?" And I said, "I don't know. Let me rearrange my insides and get some air, and I'll let you know." But we had a great time, and I would give anything to go back to those days. And the final trip that we took together was going out west and seeing the Badlands. How nature has created such beauty, and how humanity as a whole is hell-bent on destroying it. It's a sad fact, but it's the truth, whether you want to believe me or not. And I'm thankful that my dad took me to some of these places when he did. It gives me a great respect for Mother Nature, and it gives me a great respect for him because he wanted us to have the best of everything. You know, we didn't make it to California like he was trying to do, but, you know, we had a unfortunate incident with a friend of ours that made us kind of cut our trip short at least a couple of weeks to come back and pay homage to this friend that died suddenly. And if you want to know about that, go back through some of my other videos to see that. But my dad was one of those guys that did what he had to do for his country and raised a good family. And I miss that guy. I miss him more than words could ever say. But I wanted to get on here and wish him a happy birthday. Hope he gives Mom a big, big hug wherever the hell he is. And that we all love him and miss him down here. If you want to play some good music, play the following. Play some Patsy Cline from Crazy to to whatever song she has. Let's see. I think she had Crazy. Let's see. Let's pull up some Patsy Cline here. Let's see. Patsy Cline. Patsy Cline! Yeah, so she would have been 87 this year. Yeah. Let's see. What songs did she have? She had songs like I Fall to Pieces, Crazy, and Walking After Midnight. Play those. Play those. I Fall to Pieces, Crazy, and Walking After Midnight. My dad liked her, and he also liked Tom T. Hall. So, yeah. Let's see. Let's see here. And yep. So my dad grew up on Patsy Cline, Tom T. Hall, Red Sylvine, and all those old time acts. And I think they got him through a lot of things. And if he hears Patsy Cline, or if he heard Patsy Cline in the past tense, he would tear up. He would literally tear up. It didn't make him a pussy. It just shows that people's voices can move. But today is one of those hard days that I just want to crawl back into bed and kind of forget about. But I can't. This is one of those days that I just rather say, you know what? I don't feel like talking about it, but I wanted to talk about it, and I'm glad I did. But if you want to honor my father, play Patsy Cline, play Tom T. Hall, or even play Steve Miller's Book of Dreams. He even liked that album, so yeah. But happy birthday, Dad. Happy 85th. And before I close, if you want to hear about another song that he liked, try Sir Mix-a-Lot's I Like Big Butts. He saw the video on TV one night, and I was watching it with him, and he heard that song come on, and he was bopping his foot, and I kind of nudged my brother and pointed back, and I said, and my brother and I looked at each other, we laughed, and I said, you like the song, Dad? And he was like, yeah, really, I really do. But to honor my dad's memory, I'm going to post some links below to a few Patsy Cline songs, and I want you guys to listen to those songs. Post some comments to those particular videos on the particular music. You don't have to say anything to honor my dad. I just felt the need to do this. And I will share the page where my father's house was. So, yeah. He came from a humble small town of Cadiz, Ohio, known for its street fairs and small town community. And as I said, my Aunt Lucille lived on the same street as my grandparents, and my Aunt Linda, is his sister, so, yeah. Yep. Just looking at some pictures here, with Mother's Day passing by. And a lot of memories have pulled up. So, it's just sad. It really is. Let's see. One more thing I want to talk about. I've been meaning to talk about this. Ben Stiller lost his father yesterday at the age of 92. I remember him from Stellar and Mira, the HBO television show. Most of you might know him from Jerry Seinfeld. He got a second wind in his career, but he was around for a long, long time. We've lost a lot of people over the last couple days. Another one from NBC's Today Show took another hit. So yeah, it's been a really tumultuous year. Notwithstanding the COVID-19 situation, but we've had a lot of people dying, and with the celebration of my birthday this past 10 or 11 days, we had to deal with my dad's day of birth. So yeah, I want to commemorate his life this way, and I wanted to make a little remark about Ben Stiller, and he's gone at the age of 92. Rest in peace, Mr. Stiller. Hopefully, you're in a better place than we are. But to my dad, happy birthday. Say hi to Mom for me. Take care of yourself. We love you. We miss you. Play with Taffy and Teddy for me. I know they're there with you, so yeah. But I'm doing okay, about as well as can be expected. Just dealing with a lot of things around here. Nursing a cut leg and dealing with that. It's getting better, but it sure hurt like hell here the last couple of days. But it's getting better. It hasn't bled anymore, so that's good. So I'll keep changing the bandages as long as it takes. Have a good day, everybody, and keep my dad in your thoughts as we go through this afternoon. Bye.